You know, there's a story written in stone, in our very DNA, and is buried deep beneath the ice at the bottom of the world. It's a story that you are definitely not going to find in any official history book. Today, we're opening the case files on our own forgotten past. So let's just start with a single, really unsettling question. What if that clean, simple timeline of human history we all learned in school is not just incomplete? What if it's fundamentally wrong? What if there are entire chapters of our story that have been completely torn out?
For decades, the narrative has been this neat, straight line. Humans come out of Africa, trek across the Bering Strait, and poof, they populate the Americas. Simple. But new evidence, from genetics, from archaeology, it's painting a very different picture. It's not a straight line at all. It's a complex, tangled web. And today, we're going to pull on some of those threads and just see where they lead.
Our investigation kicks off at the very bottom of the world, Antarctica. We're opening our first case file, and we're hunting for signs of a lost civilization, one that's been hidden for thousands of years under miles of solid ice. 2 kilometers. Let that sink in for a second. That's how thick the ice is where scientists, just back in 2014, found a canyon system the size of the Grand Canyon. It's a landform so vast you can actually see it from space, and it's a pretty stark reminder of just how much our planet might be hiding from us. Now, what's really fascinating about this is how the lead scientists themselves reacted. Dr. Neil Ross said it serves to, and I quote, demonstrate how much we still have to discover about our planet. To me, that sounds like a mainstream scientist basically admitting that an entire continent's history is still a complete and utter mystery. And here's the thing, as that ice sheet starts to recede, ground-penetrating radar is sending back some absolutely shocking images. The data is revealing these vast, complex, straight-line structures under the ice. Some researchers are saying, look, these are not natural formations. They believe we could be looking at large-scale archaeological sites, hinting at a civilization that might have existed there before the ice covered everything over 20,000 years ago.
Now, this brings up an impossible question. Who could have been there? And that leads us to this. The Piri-Reis map, drawn up in 1513. It appears to show the coastline of Antarctica with stunning accuracy, but without any ice on it. This was almost 300 years before the continent was even officially discovered. So how could anyone map a continent hidden under miles of ice unless they, or whoever they got their information from, saw it before it was frozen?
All right, let's put a pin in that for a moment and move to our next case file. Let's see how this all starts to connect. We're leaving the ice of Antarctica for the deserts of Peru, where a strange biological anomaly is completely rewriting the rules of human migration. Okay, so in Peru, archaeologists found these tombs, right? And they were filled with bodies that had these enormous, elongated skulls. When the DNA was finally tested, the results were, well, they were stunning. These people were not genetically related to Native Americans. They didn't have the A, B, C, or D genetic haplogroups, which are basically the ancestral fingerprints for the first peoples of the Americas. Instead, their DNA traced back to Europe and the Middle East. Now, the immediate pushback from skeptics is, oh, it's just head binding, the practice where you wrap an infant's head to change its shape. But this slide shows you exactly why that theory just doesn't work. Sure, you can change the shape of a skull, but what medical experts will tell you is you cannot increase its volume. And the Paracas skulls are up to 25% larger than a normal human skull. This wasn't something they did to themselves, it was in their genes.
And it gets even weirder. The nobility of this culture had genetically red hair, they had light-colored skin, and possibly even green or blue eyes. I mean, these are traits that are completely alien to the pre-Columbian peoples of the Americas. All the evidence points to a group of advanced seafarers who somehow crossed the ocean thousands of years before Columbus was even born.
Our third and final case file takes us to the remote, frozen wilderness of Siberia. This is where scientists stumbled upon an entirely forgotten branch of the human family, a kind of ghost lineage that might just be the key to this entire puzzle.
They're called the Denisovans. We only know about them from a few tiny fragments of bone and some teeth, but their DNA revealed a whole new kind of human, genetically distinct from Neanderthals and from us. By all accounts, they were massive, maybe 7 feet tall, and they thrived across Asia for hundreds of thousands of years.
And right near where their remains were found, deep in the mountains of Siberia, stands this megalithic wall, and it's built with granite blocks weighing up to 4,000 tons. To put that in perspective, that's more than double the largest stone at any other ancient site on Earth.
Our absolute best modern cranes can't even get close to lifting them. So, who could have? Could this have been the work of the Denisovans?
The artifacts found with them certainly suggest they were anything but primitive. We are talking about beautifully polished stone jewelry from 40,000 years ago, bone needles so fine they must have been used for tailored clothing, and even evidence that they domesticated and rode horses tens of thousands of years before anyone thought that was possible. So, we've got three separate, totally baffling mysteries: an ice-free Antarctica, European skulls in Peru, and giant advanced humans in Siberia. On their own, they're just oddities. But what happens when we start connecting the dots?
First, we now know that Denisovan DNA didn't just stay put in Siberia. Through interbreeding with our own ancestors, their genetic fingerprints spread all over the planet, from Asia all the way to the islands of the Pacific.
Second, those Paracas people in Peru, they were clearly part of a culture that had incredible seafaring skills, totally capable of navigating the world's oceans in prehistoric times.
And third, that Piri Reis map seems to imply the existence of exactly that kind of culture, a global, seafaring civilization that charted the entire planet, including Antarctica, before the last ice age changed everything.
And here it is. This is the genetic smoking gun. This chart shows Denisovan DNA in people alive today. It's highest way out in Melanesia, but look closely. It's also found in several Native American populations. Somehow, the DNA of these Siberian giants made it all the way to the Americas. This completely blows a hole in the idea that the Bering Strait was the only way in.
So, when you put all the pieces together, what does it all mean? Well, it points toward a completely new and, frankly, a far more epic story of humanity, one filled with forgotten players and entire lost worlds.
The connections we've just walked through, they point to a really startling possibility. If they're confirmed, then as one expert put it, everything that we thought we knew about human history has to be rewritten. It would mean we are not the first advanced civilization to call this planet home. And that leaves us with one final, profound question. If our story stretches back into a past so deep we can barely even imagine it, a past filled with other intelligent human species and lost civilizations, then who are we really? And what else about ourselves have we forgotten?